Hi, I'm Dillionaire. This episode of RWBY was one of, if not the best episode of this volume so far. It had some imagery that really hasn't been seen in the entire series. This is my thoughts and review for RWBY Volume 9, Episode 8, Tea Amidst Terrible Trouble. If you haven't seen the episode yet, I highly recommend you do, as I will be spoiling it. Now, let's dive into this peak fiction. We open with RWBY still running through the forest of the Paper Pleaser Acre as she runs out of breath and collapses. Little is confused as to why she's acting like this. RWBY asks them why they're still here, to which they reply they promised to be. RWBY brings up the promises she's made. To be a huntress and protect Atlas and its people. To be there for her friends. All of these promises broken. It's clear that running away from her friends is something she's already regretting, and it's really getting to her, but she's already in too deep to stop now. Little tries to convince her to go back, but RWBY is heavily against it, saying that she can't do it anymore. She never could. She has lost all faith in herself and in her ideals. She warns Little that if they stay with her, they'll just end up dead too, thinking of all the people she's lost and failed to protect. She tells Little to just go home, but they don't listen, and she yells at them, just go home. She has pushed everyone out and nothing can reach her anymore. She is on a path of isolation. As RWBY abandons Little, we see her keep walking, with her surroundings turning into nothingness, just a black void. This does wonders to convey visually just how alone RWBY feels, mentally and physically. There is nothing that she feels could make her recover from this. She's convinced herself she's just a failure with no power to change anything. She crosses the bridge out of the acre and into the next, and comes across a giant pink mansion with spotlights. It's obviously Neo's house. On the inside, there are paintings on the wall of Neo as a child with who I assume is her parents, Cinder and Neo, and finally a painting of Neo and Roman Torchwick together over her presumably deceased parents. I haven't read the RWBY books, so this is some pretty quick exposition that isn't very intrusive. RWBY is confused as to what this is when the Roman in the painting looks at and calls out to her, triggering her to get her weapon ready. He taunts her and she asks, "Where is Neo?" He tells her that she has no manners, even though everyone came to see her. The lights in the rest of the room turn on to reveal a table filled with characters we know. Characters who have died. Penny, Pyrrha, Leonardo Lionheart, Clover, Ozpin, and General Ironwood. They're all here. When these guys were revealed, I audibly gasped. I had halfway expected this to happen, but the way Neo is teasing RWBY with these people is so twisted. She's taunting her with people who she's failed in one way or another. People who she's let down and couldn't save. This is too good. Terrible for RWBY's mental state, but amazing to watch unfold. As I had said last time, Pyrrha used to be my favorite back in the day, so seeing her in the new RWBY engine, even if it isn't really her, brought a smile to my face. RWBY begins to question how she's doing this, as she becomes increasingly uncomfortable. They all burst out laughing at her. She yells it isn't real, and Roman laughs even harder, saying she's the one following a talking cat around a fairy tale. Reality is getting fuzzier by the minute. He starts talking about Neo and how things changed for her once she landed in the Ever After. She always wanted a place to run away to and do anything she wanted. He was going to give that to her on Remnant, but he died before he could. RWBY gets aggravated, asking if she really still blames her for his death, and if she wants an apology, she won't be getting one. This angers Neo as every illusionary person in the room's eye color changes to brown and pink, and they all do her signature smirk. She begins talking through Roman as if it's herself, saying that people think they're the heroes of their own story. But she knew she wasn't. She knows RWBY doesn't think she is either. Roman catches a falling leaf and asks RWBY if she wants a reset. RWBY, recognizing that this is from the tree, challenges her, saying that if she wants her dead, come and get her. Roman laughs, saying that she doesn't deserve death. She deserves to be erased, to ascend, be destroyed until there isn't even a memory of RWBY anymore. Neo appears and jumps over RWBY and joins with Torchwick and the others. She's speaking through everyone in the room while smiling. She's going to enjoy watching her break. This is the perfect way to get Neo to speak without doing it herself. It's menacing and creepy. It makes you feel disturbed. The way they all spoke in unison reminded me of the delightful children from down the lane, from the Cartoon Network show Kids Next Door, if anyone has seen that. Next, we see Yang, Blake, Weiss, and Jean calling out for RWBY in the Paper Pleaser Forest. Yang is mad that RWBY just ran away, without even trying to talk to them. Blake tries to calm her down by saying that she was just upset, and Weiss says that she probably didn't feel like she could talk to them. Weiss understands that everyone looks to RWBY in times of hardship, relying on her to get everyone through it all. RWBY didn't feel like she could talk to them because she had to put on a brave face as the leader for years, even though she was a scared, inexperienced child. Yang says that they weren't asking her to be perfect, and as everyone dwells on that, it becomes silent, and a big boom echoes through the forest. Everyone here is portrayed very well. Jean, who yelled at her in the last episode, contributing to the very reason she ran away, feels terrible that she's missing and looks down in silence. Weiss, who treats her friends like family and tries to be there for them when they're at their worst, knows she's put too much of a burden on RWBY and feels terrible for it. Blake, who knows people can act rashly when they're lost emotionally, like herself after Beacon and Ilya in Menagerie, doesn't want Yang to be angry at her for running, because she firsthand knows why. And Yang, who actively tries to support everyone around her, taking every burden upon herself, is angry and can't even think straight. She's getting mad at herself for not knowing how to help. RWBY didn't let her in to even try. It shares a great similarity to how she felt when Blake ran away after Beacon. She told Weiss, "How can I be there for her if she doesn't let me?" Of course she didn't want RWBY to become like this. She gave everything for her. But the fact that she's like this, and Yang couldn't do anything to stop it, even after multiple tries, it's eating away at her. The character writing in Volume 9 is some of the best we've ever had, and I am here for it. A boom echoes through the forest, and they all hear it. It turns out to be RWBY fighting all of the illusions by herself as they taunt and berate her, trying to break her spirit even more as Little watches from above. Ironwood tells her that she didn't have the right to decide what was best for Atlas. Pyrrha says that she traded her life and bright future so her friends could survive. We watch as RWBY's aura breaks from the attacks. She drops Crescent Rose to the ground, and as she goes to get it, Penny blocks it with her swords and approaches her, saying that she was too late to save her at the Vital Festival, and in Atlas she died too. She's failed time and time again by the person who means the world to her. RWBY is destroyed, with tears in her eyes, stammering and unable to say anything back as she gets pulled by Torchwick. Neo goes so far to break RWBY's will, using one of her best friend's deaths, plural, against her is so grim. It was hard for me to see this. To only imagine how this has to feel for RWBY is devastating. It doesn't matter that it's Neo saying it. RWBY believes it to be true anyway. Penny cared for RWBY a lot, and RWBY's devastated to hear her say this to her face. Pyrrha then hits her with a combo, asking how many people have to die because of her. She's beaten to the ground, saying that it wasn't her fault. Ozpin starts beating her with his cane and yelling, demanding to know how many lives she'll ruin before she realizes she's not cut out to save anyone. However, she powers through it and grabs her weapon to counterattack. But when she does, it's Oscar who she's cut down instead. One of her closest friends, who she hasn't failed yet. He calls out to her as he falls to the ground. His eyes are lifeless as the blood pools, and illusions of all her friends look in horror of what she's done. Roman asks her if she can handle watching more of her friends fall, or if she's ready to admit that the world would be better without her. RWBY begs him to stop. She starts having a panic attack, hyperventilating, clutching her head, falling to her hands and knees, crying. Neo comes out and offers her the tea that will cause her ascension. This scene is so painful, absolutely heartbreaking. Seeing RWBY alone and beaten, crying in front of her friends is such a dreadful sight. We are long past the tipping point of mental collapse. It's all over the ground and it's a whole mess. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the most battle damage we've seen RWBY take ever. The curious cat appears and blasts a hole through Neo's illusionary mansion, sending her flying. They comfort RWBY and tell her it's all over now. She rolls over and puts her hands on her head, saying that she doesn't want to be herself anymore, with tears flowing down her face. The cat says it's okay, because they can be her instead. It starts laughing, saying that they've been trying to wear her down for so long, as it sinks its claws into her and she gasps in pain and energy starts glowing in the room. The cat says that when a heart is broken, they can fill it with theirs, as they admit they haven't been entirely honest while baring their fangs. Their eyes turn monochrome as it says it's cursed with curiosity, needing to know everything, but more than anything, it wants to know why its makers left them here, only to leave and make all of... They get cut off, due to Little biting their tail, saying that friends don't hurt, before being tossed aside. So the cat is special, and isn't like any other Afteran. That much we knew. But by makers, they most likely mean the two brothers, the gods. What I think they were going to say is only to leave and make all of Remnant, which would mean that the Ever After came first, and the cat knew about Remnant. Does that mean that the cat was a relic to this world? Or was it like Ozma? He's keeping the world stable as he awaits the god's return. Neo comes back and flings the cat away, saving RWBY from its clutches. Little starts tugging on RWBY's fingers, telling her they have to go, we need to leave. But as she's begging RWBY to get up, Neo stomps on them, smushing them into the ground. RWBY sees it all, her eyes shaking in grief and terror as she's proven right. They stayed by her side, and they ended up dead. Neo slides the cup of tea in front of her, with Roman saying it's about time they all get what they deserve. Weiss, Blake, Yang, and Jean run in to see this all happen. RWBY looks Yang in the eye and drinks the tea. RWBY, along with Little and Crescent Rose, falls into the roots of the tree to begin ascension. This hurt so much. To see her acknowledge that her loved ones are here to protect her and still feel so hopeless she instead decides to end all of her pain by self-harm. This is an extremely heavy moment, and I understand why they had to put a warning on the episode. Neo has a somber expression and is staring blankly. Roman is talking to her in her head, congratulating her on finally getting rid of RWBY, that now they can take over the whole world. Neo shakes her head, disagreeing. Roman is confused and asks if offing her was all she really wanted. I see this as Neo talking to herself. She realized after making Ruby ascend that she has nothing left. Getting rid of her made her feel worse, not better. Her revenge is bitter and didn't bring Roman back. All she has is her own recreation of the memory of him. Jean threatens the cat to take them to RWBY, but they say the tree isn't a place you go, it's a place you know. It sets its sight on Neo as she has just realized she's empty. Her heart is broken. It shoots a blast at Weiss, Blake, Yang, and Jean, sending them flying. It starts to grow and morph into a color scheme that very much reminds me of a creature of Grimm. They call Neo an empty host, perfect for themselves to fill. It starts horrifically shoving itself down Neo's throat as her eyes begin to turn into a checkerboard pattern. Jean tries to grab the cat and stop it, but he's too late. The cat has taken over Neo's body and begins to talk through her, the first time she's talked in the series, even though it's the cat's voice. They taunt Jean by saying they're tired of his sob story and that he should just accept his futility, smiling wide with multiple layers of sharp teeth and huge blue eyes. Using Neo's semblance and its own powers, it flies off in the direction of the tree, most likely in an attempt to get to Remnant. In the credits, we pay respect to Billy Kametz, an esteemed voice actor and the previous voice of Roman Torchwick, who had passed away last year. End of episode. Okay, this is a lot, so let's talk about some small stuff first. The animation in this episode is phenomenal. The body language of all the characters, even the illusions, was extremely accurate. I loved the little sway and smile Neo did while she taunted Ruby. The eye animations were also very well done, and as they say, the eyes are a window into the soul, and you can really see it in this episode. The voice acting was awesome too. Amazing stuff. Ruby was pushed to the absolute brink and her performance was insane. The other characters that Neo made with illusions also surprised me. Ozpin in particular. I don't believe we've ever heard Oz raise his voice like that, and it sounded intimidating and was great to listen to. The treachery of the cat was definitely expected, and I knew that I could never trust a character voiced by Robbie Daymond again. He plays traitors too well. He did a very great job with the cat's tone change in this episode. Now let's get on to some of the heavier things. This episode was a lot to handle with very traumatic themes. There's probably a ton of people out there who felt the feelings that Ruby is feeling now. Not wanting to be yourself, sitting in the middle of so much despair and sorrow that everything seems hopeless, with really scary thoughts. We had to watch as Ruby's trauma and Neo's emotional manipulation drive her to make such a horrible decision. Of course, she understands that Neo's illusions are illusions, but it doesn't matter when the things that they're saying to her are her worst thoughts that she believes deep down. Everyone is distraught when this happens. Nobody understood just how much Ruby had been hurting, and they won't soon forget her essentially ending everything in front of their own eyes. Of course, she'll probably come back. It's kind of her show. But still, you can never know how much someone is going through unless you ask them. As her sister, Yang definitely hurts the most here. She gave up everything to take care of Ruby, and she could only watch as she looked her in the eyes and chose what she did. I saw someone bring up the fact that Ruby most likely didn't even know it was the real Yang. She wasn't looking when they ran in, and Neo had used Yang as an illusion multiple times before. So she gave the look of being defeated as she gave up to her real sister, not knowing it was really her. Absolutely devastating. Even with everything that happens after, Yang is just staring at the spot where it happened, with her hand close to her chest on the verge of a panic attack. I appreciated how quickly Blake tried to shield Yang from the cat's breath blast thingy. She knew that she was in a catatonic state and had to protect her love. Listening to Gold hurts extra hard now, though. I hope we get some real good heart-to-hearts at the end of this volume. The cat being created by the gods, the two brothers, is very cool. If it is a relic, would it be the crown of choice? Or a fifth relic, a relic of curiosity? It seems to spite its creators and wants to find out what makes Remnant so special to them. They're definitely not someone you want going to Remnant, that's for sure. These gods are massive jerks, too. They have no care for what their actions do to their creations. They left the cat alone and cursed it to want to know everything, most likely as a tool for them to find out if the world they created is functioning correctly. Right, now let's talk about Ascension. RWBY is on her way to go ascend into something new, or at least be given the chance to. We're still missing a few lines from the blacksmith that were said in the trailer, so this is most likely where it's going to come into play, with her being a manifestation of the tree's power or something. I believe she's going to show RWBY her life through the flames of the forge, and ask her if she really wants to go through with it. Maybe we'll get something with Summer, too. No, I won't let this go. Summer needs to appear, God, please. So the question that's begging to be answered is, will RWBY actually ascend? Will she go through the process and come out something new? My guess is no. We'll need her going forward. However, Little fell with her, and with Little being a small vessel of hope, kind of like the old RWBY, I believe that they could fuse and give RWBY back what she's missing. It will be like a part of Little being with her forever. If RWBY does ascend, though, how cool would it be to see a RWBY who is what she wanted to be when she was a kid? A huntress just like her mother. She could even have Summer Rose's white hood and wield her weapon that was hanging in the blacksmith's shop. Some people believe that Little is an ascended Penny, but I don't think the timing of everything would add up. Plus, killing Penny for a third time wouldn't sit well with me. As for Neo, I really hope that we save her, or at least try to save her, if it's even possible. Now that she realized that getting revenge didn't fill her emptiness inside, she could turn a new leaf and join the hero side with people who will actually care for her given enough time. She'll be able to fight back against the real reason Roman died, Salem's plans. The rest of our heroes are about to dive headfirst into something they don't understand, and it could be extremely dangerous for them. I hope they can all support each other so nobody, Yang most of all, does anything rash and gets themselves hurt, or worse. Yang's already learned this lesson after Adam, but with her sister in grave danger, anything can happen. I have no idea what's going to happen next, and I'm just along for the ride. This episode took a lot out of me mentally, and it was hard to watch at times. I hope everyone can have a great week without depression waiting for episode 9. My predictions from last time were pretty wrong. I'll give myself half a point for Neo, but otherwise they were all wrong. This time, I won't play it safe. I'll just go full-on crackpot theory with my predictions. My predictions for the next episode are RWBY being shown her life, Attack on Titan style. RWBY setting aside Crescent Rose and wielding Summer's weapon. And RWBY and Little fusing into one, with a reveal that the same thing happened to Alex and Lewis. For an extra prediction, I'm going all in. Little is revealed to be an ascended Summer Rose as we see the events of their life and previous life. What do you think will happen next episode? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, it means a lot. Please consider subscribing. Next week will be the make or break for Ruby Rose, and I'll be crying while I'm waiting. See you then!